Hey everybody, this is Alex Goff with FloRugby. We're here in the Flow Sports Studios, and we're very happy to have a guest with us to talk a little bit about University of Texas Rugby and Zac Mizell, the new head coach, relatively new head coach of the Texas Longhorns. And Zac, great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
And Zac, you know, we one of the things about it is you're a fairly young guy. You're still playing, and tell me a little bit about how you started coaching the Longhorns, because that happened this summer.
Yeah, so I got brought in originally by Mickey Johnson. He was a guy who I've played with at the Blacks previously and at the Huns, and he asked me if I wanted to assistant coach the Sevens team. Well, I hadn't known much about UT Rugby, and so I was like, okay, I'll dip my toes in the water and see how it feels. Well, I started out, and we started with 4 training sessions a week, up to 5, up to 6, and the guys were just craving knowledge over and over. And
so that's, I'm sorry, but that's
yeah.
really interesting, because most teams, most club teams, it's sort of a Tuesday, Thursday thing. Maybe they have an extra run or an extra lifting session.
Mm-hmm.
3 practices a week is a lot for a lot of teams, and here you are doubling that.
For sure. And so the way we looked at it is, if we want to beat teams that are having those 5 and 6 practices a week, we can't expect to even get close unless we start with the same. If we don't start with the same amount of practices, how can we expect to be the same level? So we looked at programs like Arkansas State, Davenport, Cal Berkeley, and those guys are training 6 times a week. So if you want to start working your way towards that level, you've really got to match that training environment.
Right. Now, Arkansas State, obviously that's the school where you played, where you were an All-American, and sort of, I'm sure that you are drawing something from that and from your experiences playing for Matt Huckabee and the other coaches there. Yeah,
that was honestly my first taste of high-performance rugby at all, with the weightlifting and everything like that. Previously, I just played club rugby. So when I got there, learning from Matt, and then Alex Hauser, who followed after, really started that culture and building that program. And it was something that, to be honest, I fell in love with. It was amazing, and I just saw what you can do with just a little bit more time and effort.
Now, University of Texas is a little bit different animal from Arkansas State, and the Longhorns have had some really strong years in the past and some great players coming out of there. Fallen on hard times maybe last couple of years, struggled to get wins in the Red River Conference. Still in D1A, that's great, and still in Red River, but I would imagine one of the goals you have for yourself, having played at the highest level in college rugby, is to get Texas moving in that direction.
Yeah, I think for sure getting in that direction is the start, but you can't look to put the top of the totem pole before you build the bottom. And so what we're looking to do at the start is build a base for high-performance culture. So once you get those building blocks in place and you can just set the expectations, then we start trying to meet them, and then once we get to those expectations, we can set those goals and working towards being Arkansas State or someone like that.
Now, it's a chicken and egg thing, right? So you want to set the expectations and the demands so that you then attract athletes and you attract rugby players who are serious. But it really helps if you have athletes and rugby players who are serious on your team to start with.
Exactly, yeah.
What are you working with right now? What has your recruiting strategy, maybe your on-campus recruiting strategy, been?
Well, I got in June, which was pretty much the school has shut down. Right. But what we've realized is you can't get a kid into the University of Texas. We don't have any admission leeway or things like that. Along with the top 10% in Texas is automatically accepted into UT. So the majority of them elect to go there. So what we determined would be the best route is to have an internal school recruiting camp. And so we're going to do an open combine on September 5th and 7th to everybody at the school, anybody that wants to join rugby, whether they've played sports, rugby, anything, come out and see what you've got pretty much.
Well, that's the assumption a lot of us are making about a large top-tier athletic school like Texas, is that there are athletes out there. They're walking across campus. They're not playing football. They're not playing varsity sports necessarily, or maybe they're a little bit tired of whatever sport they're playing. You know, you can only run around an oval so many times maybe for some people. I don't know. Other people are excited about it for the rest of their lives. But you can grab those guys. You hope you can grab those guys. How do you do it? What's the approach? I mean, you have the combine, which is a decision-making situation for you.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you address the decision-making moment for those athletes?
So I think, like you said before, it's like a chicken and the egg type thing, is how do we get these elite athletes without already having the elite program? So what I sought to do was, our kids that currently play for the program are really looking to move forward towards the elite program. And so having those guys believe in it, it's all of our officers, it's our president, it's everybody within the team, allows us to now present that high performance outlook, because it's something that our team believes in, it's something that I'm going to uphold as a coach, and then it's something that we can put out to the school. So now that we have the team belief in it and a coach that can make it happen, that's where we're going to make it draw in those elite athletes that are looking for another high level program to join.
Word of mouth goes around. You know,
exactly.
This is how they operate. If you like that, go with it.
Yeah.
Now the issue that a lot of coaches can run into is the idea that if you set the standard, you have to be willing to walk away from a player or let a player walk away. And when you're looking at your numbers and saying, well, I thought I had 50 and now I have 28, and then, you know, do you think about that?
I do.
Have you seen that, say, in your playing time? You know,
I have, and I've seen where the best programs that get pushed extremely hard excel is the players must lead that change. So rather than me saying we're going to do 6 sessions a week, I put out to my players, how many sessions do you think a varsity level team should do per week? And then they're going to answer accordingly, 4, 5, 6. But the funny thing is, when you get a bunch of guys in together in a group, they're always going to say 6. They're always going to say they want a championship. They're always going to say they want to be the best. And once I've gotten them to say that, now all I have to do is hold them accountable to those words.
Right. They said that's what they want.
Exactly.
Right? They said let's
exactly,
do it.
Yeah.
Said, okay, you said that. That means you show up. That means you put in the work.
And so that was my first steps, is just to put a survey out and see what their expectations were along with their goals, and then all I do is set down a structure that they're going to follow based on their own words.
Okay. Now you're a young coach, and you know, we have all kinds of different coaches, college coaches around the country. There are the gurus, and there are the taskmasters, and then there are the ones who've sort of been there. You've played at the international level, not a lot, but you have played at the international level. Are you their buddy? Are you their older brother? What is the relationship you have with players, being a younger coach?
With the players, I think I give them not necessarily an exact path to follow, but a path to follow, especially for American rugby players. A lot of the guys that have come over and coached them have been internationals or just guys that didn't follow the elite pathway in American rugby. So the fact that I did follow it, I got to go through the Collegiate All-Americans and then into USAA and USA Sevens, gives these kids from Texas a view of, oh, there is a way that I can do this. I just have to work hard enough. So I think my relationship with them is, they see me more as a mentor, or especially for our elite rugby players that are looking to move forward, a goal or somewhere to progress towards.
Good. Red River Conference, do you have an expectation as to where you fit into that conference competitively this year? Or still you haven't had your combine? Maybe you don't even know what players you've got at this point.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't. I know the guys from last year, but hopefully we'll pick up a few more guys along the way. But the way I see it, it's going to sound cliche, is we're going to win one game at a time. We've got to take the first game and have success in it. And even within winning one game, we've got to win the first 20 minutes. It's to break it down, even from winning one game, we're looking to win the first 20 minutes of the first time we step on the field.
So baby steps.
Baby steps.
Baby steps is sort of almost a baby program in a way, even though it's been around for a long time.
Exactly.
You're remaking it somewhat. Have you run into players who are sort of stuck in, you know, we're not winning games and we don't expect to win games? Do you have to change expectations for some players?
Oh, 100%. We went through the sevens season, which was guys who had mostly lost for the majority of their career at UT. We had lost those older guys that had the experience of winning. And so we had to convince them that just from the first point stepping onto the field, you're an equal. And that's a hard thing to do with someone that went 2-10 previously.
Right.
And so we worked and worked, and once they saw all those sessions kicking in, I remember this game like it was yesterday. The last sevens game we played was against Baylor, who had won the conference championship in 15s. And we played our guts out and went into overtime with them. And although we lost that game, I could see the switch in their head flick to where it was like, we don't need to give them anything. We're giving teams undue respect, and there's no need to do that.
They're still students. They're still college students.
Exactly.
Right? Baylor had a great season. LSU had a great season. All respect to them, but they're still just a bunch of college students.
Exactly. They're still people.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's still a little bit of a cultural change for you, and then a personnel change as well, and putting in the work. When you talk about 6 sessions a week, and some of those are. Do you do 2-a-days?
Yeah, well, what we did with the sevens is we did 3 morning sessions per week, which are all fitness and weights based, and then we did 3 evening sessions, which are all rugby based.
Okay, so what's going to be your approach in the fall?
It'll be similar. I think we'll go down to 5 sessions for the 15 season just to give them Monday off so they can have a full day break, but we'll have Tuesday, Thursday will be both morning and afternoon sessions, and then Friday will just be an evening session.
So it is a big commitment for a player.
Yeah, well, for our varsity players.
For your varsity players,
yes.
okay. You know, in terms of the training sessions, but then also playing. If you go on the road and you know, elsewhere in the country, you have to realize Texas is really big.
Yeah.
So you can play, and you also have Oklahoma. And you have LSU, and you're going out of the state. But even if you stayed within the state, some very, very long trips all day. Players have to understand that they're putting in a lot of commitment. They're passing up, you know, going out with their friends, you know, telling a girlfriend, well, you know, maybe we can go out Sunday night, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
It's a commitment. Do they understand that?
I think they do, and that's what we're trying to do with separating a JV and a varsity side. It's not varsity in the fact that they get to have a school letter or get any sort of scholarship. It's varsity in the mindset. And so what we wanted to do is to create 2 different mindsets, right? We still wanted to keep that JV where we can be extremely inclusive, extremely social, and to give guys a pathway that have never played rugby before to be able to learn without having the pressures of a cup match. And so we separated the varsity. I told those guys the first minutes I became head coach that this is how we're going to do things. We're going to separate the 2, and then that's where we've started the requirements and things like that. So I think the guys can see, well, I've said 6 sessions, and he's said that we're going to do whatever I say for the varsity. And so they realize that the storm is coming, as they'll say it. But
the storm is coming. But if you want to play rugby, and maybe your school or your personal commitments are such to say, I can only commit this. You just want to play because rugby's fun.
Exactly.
You can do that and still be part of the program.
And so we're hoping that guy that's just playing because rugby is fun as a freshman or a sophomore, maybe he realizes, you know, I think I can progress in this sport if I work a little bit harder, and that's where he becomes a varsity player his junior and senior year.
Good. Who are some of the coaches that you're emulating or thinking about or hearing in your head when you start coaching?
I've had some great coaches along the way, and especially for where rugby was at when I started playing. When I began, there was only one under-15 team in Texas, and it was Alliance Rugby, and we traveled to Norman, Oklahoma every weekend playing the same team over and over because we were the only 2 under-15 teams. So I would say Doug Neubauer, who's coach against me now in OU,
coaching at the Sooners,
taught me pretty much everything I know, especially in the basics of rugby, whether it's just the pop, pass, drawing and passing, pinning and passing, everything like that he established. And then from there I would say Michael Engelbrecht took me to the next level of thinking about rugby. He gave me a view, I guess it would be an international view now that we're looking at it, but a view of the decision making and the things that are going to be required in the elite level of rugby. So those 2 guys definitely
Great names, and it'll be interesting to see you coach against Doug Neubauer
and Engelbrett as
Michael.
well.
Exactly. So you'll see both of them as equals, right? You've got to now go over there and step on that field, say, "Hey, we're equals."
Exactly.
And take that approach. It'll be very interesting to track how Texas goes along this way. You know, it's a difficult situation for a program to look around and say, well, we're not performing to the level we want to, where we have those expectations, so let's flip the script a little bit. And being in my reporting, it's been interesting to see when a university team says all these things but doesn't actually change anything. Sounds to me like you've started changing something, and the only reason you're saying all these things is because I'm making you say them right here. It's first you've got to change. Work on the culture, work on your athletes, work on your approach. And then we can talk big things later, maybe in a year, see how you do, right?
Exactly, that's the goal.
Take baby steps. Zac Mizell, thank you very much. Best of luck with the Texas Longhorns this year.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.